change with your muscles. So I called it I'm feeling weak in the knees, or more specifically the vastus medialis, which is the name of one of the muscles in your knees. I know the names of lots of muscles, probably not all of them. Does anybody know what the strongest muscle is? Tongue. Tongue is the strongest muscle. If you consider its size and the amount of strength that it can exert, your tongue is the strongest muscle in your body. There are other muscles that are bigger than it, and collectively, for their size, can exert more force, but not more force per unit size. Your tongue is the strongest one. And it makes sense. You use your tongue basically all the time. Swallowing, speaking, breathing. Your tongue is always doing something. You can. Hey, can you guys do this with your tongue? I can do it. It's a weird thing. Uh-uh. Uh-huh. 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 Oh, so someone back there was kind of doing it. Was that you, maybe, Julianne? Can you do it too? I don't know. Not many people can do this. Huh. Huh. No. This? I mean, everyone can do this, usually.
Yeah, I can't do that.
No. Eh.
That's cool.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the little clover leaf thing that I can do. And I don't know how I'm doing it either. It just happens. Anyways, we're going to talk about things that change with your muscles. We'll start with what could you do to make your muscles larger, and then we'll talk about what could make your muscles weaker. All right. So we're going to talk first about steroid effect on muscles. Now, so that you know, you have steroid hormones. They're a natural thing that naturally occurs. But were you to take steroids as an additional supplement to your existing body chemistry, here is what they do to muscles. Steroids cause increased building of the protein filaments, actin, and myosin. So were a person to take steroids, it helps your body build more actin and myosin. If you have more actin and myosin, you can have more sarcomeres. More sarcomeres means more contracting units. That means greater force when your muscle contracts. So increase in strength and just sheer size, bulk. If you have more filaments, they take up more space. Now your body does this on its own, but steroids increase the rate at which the process happens. So steroids are allowing muscle cells to repair themselves faster after exercise. So anytime you exercise, what happens is that you get tiny tears in the myofibrils and the proteins that make them up. And your body will repair this. That's what it's designed to do. But steroids rebuild these proteins faster than normal. So steroids are not giving you muscle. Steroids are just helping, if you exercise, your muscle increase in size and strength faster than if you let your body do its thing by itself. And so you might ask, well, that doesn't sound so bad. What would be a negative side effect of taking steroids? Now, since we're focusing on muscles here and not necessarily on other body systems, the details of this wouldn't be something that I would ask you. But so that you know, if you replace a natural substance in your body with an artificial one, your body stops making the natural one. So you might be taking a steroid to help build your muscles, but then your normal steroid hormone, such as testosterone, doesn't get produced in as great of quantities, and the other characteristics that it controls, like reproduction and male physical characteristics, stop happening. So in Bio20E, there's an entire unit on hormones. Does anyone want to ask any questions about that right now? Yeah. It would be over time, and when you stop taking the steroids, your body would, one would hope, slowly use the process of homeostasis to get itself back to normal. But the idea would be that your body would say, oh, there's already steroids here, well, I don't need to make any more. So if you stopped taking them, as long as your body tissue is still viable, it should say, oh, I don't have steroids anymore. I should make my own again. But it would definitely be a progressive thing. Like, it wouldn't be instantaneous that you would see side effects from it, but it would start to happen right away in terms of your body decreasing the amount that it was making. So taking steroids one time will decrease for that period of time the amount that your body is making. And then if you stop doing it, then things will balance back out. It's a homeostasis thing, really. Now, the other thing that I just wanted to make sure that you understood is that for your muscles to become stronger, you have to allow your body time to rebuild the muscle fibers. So some of you might have heard that it's good to consume something with protein in it after a workout, and this is why your body needs more protein to rebuild the muscle fibers after you've torn them. And now there's two words down at the bottom that have to do with your muscles getting bigger that I just wanted you to get the definition of. Hypertrophy is when your muscles get bigger. Whenever you see troph in a word, it has to do with growth and energy. So hypertrophy is when your muscles get bigger. Hyperplasia is when you have more actual muscle fibers. And so for your muscles to become larger and stronger, you realistically need both of those processes to happen. Now, this is an example of changing your muscles to make them stronger. The next thing I'll show you is some things that could happen to make your muscles weaker. Both of them are affecting your body's constant state, homeostasis. Before I move ahead, does anyone have any questions they want to ask here? So I've got a list here of just a few pathologies. A pathology is like a diagnosable condition in which some sort of trouble is experienced. So the first pathology I have for muscles is a muscle cramp. A muscle cramp is when you have a sustained but very uncontrolled maximum muscle contraction. So when we were drawing myograms the other day, we were talking about you contracting your muscle very purposefully. There was a stimulus. You contracted your muscle. That caused fatigue. This is not quite the same thing. A muscle cramp is really uncontrolled. So you didn't make your muscle contract. Something else did. It happened automatically. It was not under voluntary control. But if I were to draw a graph of a muscle cramp and muscle fatigue, it would look really similar. Muscle fatigue is a little bit different. Muscle fatigue is when your muscle has the inability to contract because it lacks ATP. If there's not enough ATP, you end up with a bunch of lactic acid because your body tries to make more. And lactic acid, what it's specifically doing that's affecting muscle contraction is it lowers the pH of a muscle cell, and this prevents actin and myosin from attaching to each other. So this little part at the end is something that we hadn't ever said about lactic acid before. We mentioned before when it happens and how it's produced, but this idea of actin and myosin I added because now you've seen them because we talked about how a muscle contracts. So muscle cramp and muscle fatigue, not the same thing, although they would look pretty similar on a graph. The other two I put are a lot more serious. Paralysis is one. Paralysis is total inability of the muscle to contract, and not because I'm temporarily out of oxygen or I'm temporarily out of ATP. Paralysis is a more permanent condition. Usually paralysis has some neurological basis to it. So in general, the reason that someone would be paralyzed isn't because their muscle itself is damaged, but moreover because the nerves that innervate that muscle and tell it to contract have been damaged, or the connection between those nerves and the rest of the spinal cord or the brain has been damaged. So I put two terms here, quadriplegic and paraplegic, because you've probably heard them before. Quad means four. Para means two, like I got a pair of shoes or a pair of pants. Para means two. And so it's just talking about how many limbs cannot move. So paralysis, even though your muscles can't contract, it's usually not something wrong with the muscles themselves. And there's a lot of research going into artificially innervating a person's muscles, even if the connection from their own nervous system has been lost or broken. So I like to watch doctor shows, and one of the storylines on Grey's Anatomy is they're trying to help soldiers who have lost a limb have a prosthetic limb that they can control with their own nervous system. So they're recreating this neurological connection. The other thing I put on the list is muscular dystrophy, because it's one that most people have heard about, at least to some degree. This is a hereditary disease. So this is not some sort of injury that happens to your muscles or an accident that you have. This is something that you inherit. It comes with your genes. And it's characterized by wasting. Muscles being unable to rebuild themselves, muscle tissue just decomposing, disintegrating. For a lot of people with muscular dystrophy, the reason that they become unwell and eventually die is not because the muscles themselves, but it's because muscles control all your body functions. And if your heart can't beat and you can't breathe, both of which are controlled by muscles, you can't survive anymore. Now, these are not the only pathologies. There are a few more. And so I'm just going to stop